Okay, good morning guys. What we're going to do today is we're going to continue our work on percentage rates. We looked last lesson at credit cards. We're going to extend it further today to look at payday loan companies. We're going to have a recap on what the APR rates are. We're going to do some calculations based on the APR rates, and then we're going to evaluate, are these payday loan companies ethical? Should they be allowed to continue? So what I want you to do, just for the first minute, on your groups, is discuss what do you already know about payday loan companies. Off you go. Okay then guys, just let's get some initial thoughts then, one from each sort of group. Girls at the back, what do we already know about these payday loan companies?
They charge interest rates.
Okay, anything specific about the interest rates compared to maybe a credit card, for example?
A lot higher.
Okay, anything else, Lauren?
A lot higher so that people can't really pay them that much.
Okay, thank you. Sean?
If you don't pay back in like a short period of time, then the payday loan company will make like a lot of profit.
Okay, have you heard any of the examples recently in the news?
Longer.
Okay, that's a good example of a payday loan company that's been in the news an awful lot over the last couple of years. Anything else? Any other examples we've seen in the news, or any other things, Millie?
Is it like, well, I heard yesterday on the news that like, I can't remember what it said, but it was something about how somebody, I can't remember, something like double the money, you don't have to pay double. Yeah, like they cap it, the government's going to cap it so you don't have to pay double of what you pay.
Okay, fantastic. Let's just pick this apart then. So, Eve said that they charge an interest rate, an APR rate. What is APR?
Annual percentage rate.
Fantastic. Can you put that into some context then, please, Lauren?
It's the annual rate that you pay on the loan that you borrow at.
Fantastic. And what is specific about the payday loan company's APR compared, for example, credit cards or mortgages? What have we seen? Laura mentioned that they're very high. Have we got any figures?
1734%.
Okay. How does that compare then to credit cards, Sean?
It's a lot more extortionate.
Okay, yeah. So payday loan companies have been set up to lend people a small amount of money over a short period, and they charge an extortionate APR percentage rate per year. Okay? Now, if you pay back your debt very quickly, you won't owe much money at all. However, the problems are when people can't pay back their initial payment and it escalates and it snowballs really quickly. So, we're going to have a look at a few examples now.
So I've got three offers that the Bank of Dalboy are going to offer. Okay, three sort of typical sorts of deals you can often get with payday loan companies. So if you just turn around and have a quick look at these three deals. Okay, all three are here. And what we want you to do is to assess these three deals and come up with a way of deciding which offer you think is the best. Okay, different ways of doing it. I'll let you choose how you'd like to do it. But the three offers are borrowing £50 for 1 week, and at the end of that week, paying back £55. Okay, that's offer one. Offer two, £100 for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, you pay back £120. And offer three, £75 for 1 month, and at the end of that month, you're going to pay back £100. Right, in your groups of 4, 3, and 3, what I'd like you to do is try and come up with a way of working out which offer provides the best value, which one you think is the best deal, or which one you might possibly pick. Okay? So I'd like to show you working out on your tables. You've got calculators. Have a bit of discussion on your tables as to which you think is the best offer and why. Okay? And I'm going to feed back and see what we've come up with. So just give you a few minutes. This table. Can you just try and explain what process you've gone through to come up with which you think is the best?
We just basically turn them all into a month. So like number one, it's you're basically paying back £5 from a week.
Yeah.
Because it's 50 and 55. And then we times that to make 2 weeks, which would be £10. So then we knew that offer one is better than offer two already by £10.
Because you haven't to pay
£20 on
Yeah,
offer two.
good.
And then we turn that into a month to compare it to offer three. So we'd say it was about £22.50 you were paying back on offer one.
Okay.
We times offer two by 2, so that's 2 weeks to make a month, and so it'd be about £42.50, and then you're only paying back £25.
So which do you think is the best?
The one.
Okay, fantastic. Laura, what were you saying? What was your group?
We went round the month then, but we've seen how much from like 50 to 55,
Yeah.
how much the percentage rate was.
Okay. So what is that as a weekly?
10%.
Yeah, good. That's 10% per week, isn't it? Okay. So what did you go on to do
And
from there?
then we did 50 times 1.1,
Yeah.
which is 10% increase.
Yeah, that's a
to
10%
the
increase.
power 52, because of 52 days, 52 weeks in 1 month.
Yeah.
And then it
In a
equals
year, yeah.
7,102.146.
Say again, sorry. 7.
1,
Yeah.
02.146.
Yeah. Thank you. So 1.5 round.
Yeah.
So that's saying that with offer 1, if you borrowed £50 for a week, but did it over the course of a whole year, that £50 just for 1 week, at the end of the year, that would have, you'd now have to owe £7,102. What's the difference between what Laura's just explained there and this table? How have they looked at that slightly differently? Millie?
Did Lauren do a compound interest?
Yeah, fantastic. What does that mean, compound interest?
I don't know.
Anyone? Okay, good. It is that Lauren has done a compound interest. What does compound interest mean?
Like, it would be the percentage rate of the, well, after the first week, you'd have your £55 that you'd owe,
Yeah.
and then like the week after that, you'd owe the percentage rate interest on the £55 rather than the.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So you always have to pay your interest on your new. If it's compounding every week, you have to pay your interest on that new figure. Fantastic. So that offer 1, you'd have to pay about £7,102.15. What it might be worth doing to compare them. So one way that this group looked at was looking at how much you pay back per month and comparing them. What you could also do, as a way of comparing, is to work out the APR, so the annual rate for each offer. Which gives you another way of comparing it. So let's just together try and work out what the APR would be of this first offer. And then we'll see if you can work out the other two and then look at that as a way of comparing them. Okay? So, I've got my starting amount of £50. I need to find my multiplier. I need to know what I'm multiplying that by to give that amount. Yeah, I want to know what my interest, my APR is going to be. So if I just call that X, and I need to give a value of 7102.15. Because this will tell me what my multiplier is, and therefore what my APR is. Okay? So how could I go from this stage into working out my value of X, or what my multiplier is? Millie?
Could you divide your 7,102 by 50?
Fantastic. Yeah. So some other calculator. We'll see that, we'll just divide it by the 50.
142.043.
142.043. So, the way of checking that, if you'd added 50 times by your multiplier, it should give you that value. So that's my multiplier. What is that as an APR then? For example, if my multiplier was 1.04, what would my APR be? If it's something's increasing by
4%.
4%, yeah. If you times it by 1.04, that's the same as a 4% increase, so 4% APR. So any ideas on how to get my multiplier? This is going to be a massive number. Get that multiplier into an APR. Basically going from a decimal to a percentage. How do you go from a decimal to a percentage generally? Say if I had that was my multiplier, what would that APR be? 23%. So what you could do, I'll show you one way of doing it. is subtract 1 to get you 0.23. Yeah.
Oh, you had 100 there.
And then multiply by 100. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So we're going to subtract 1 and then multiply by 100. And that's going to tell us the APR. So what's that going to give us? How can we go from 142? Yeah, good.
Times 100.
Excellent.
So it'll be 14,200.
Remember to subtract the 1.
No, subtract the 1.
So 14.
14,100.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So that multiplier, if I want to know that as an APR, the annual rate, so the annual interest rate is on that first offer 14,104%. Comparing that to normal credit cards or normal loans, I mean, how does that compare? What do you think is that as an APR?
A lot more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that is huge. That is a massive interest rate. Right, what I'd like you to try and do is maybe use that now as a way of working out the APR on the other two offers and using that as a comparison to work out which is the best deal. So you've come up with some really good stuff of one way of doing it. Now, I'd just like you for a few minutes, see if you can work out the APR of offer 2 and offer 3. Okay? Right, let's just bring it together then, okay? There's a lot of good work going on and some really good calculations. I just want to see if we all agree on the APRs, okay?
So that's
Is that it?
Shelby,
Yeah.
what did you get for the APR for offer 2?
11,374.46.
Put your hand up. Well, disagree, agree with
Yeah.
this table?
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. So that's slightly better than this one. Anyone get on to offer 3?
No.
Anyone any thoughts then on which, well, what you think the APR might be? Do you think it might be better or worse than the first 2? Worse, what makes you say that? So offer 3 is over 1 month.
So you just times it by
So the power of 12, yeah.
So it'd be better.
Yeah, so I'm sure you can all work that out. What it actually gives, so you thought it was higher, because it's only over 12 periods, that one is 3, it's gone off the bottom of the screen slightly, but offer 3 is actually the best of the 3. Okay? Both got these ones. Offer 3, 3,057%. Okay? And also, another way you could have done it was to work out the daily interest rate. Okay? So, we went from looking at simple interest to begin with, to comparing them using compound interest. I think we've come up with slightly different answers. What did you say to begin with, Millie?
Which one?
We said offer 1 was the best.
Offer 1 was the best,
Yeah.
and that's turned out to be the
Worse.
worst, because it's compound instead of... Excellent. Very good. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to move on now. We want to start to draw some conclusion on these payday loan companies. I've just picked some headlines from the newspapers from the last year, all to do with payday loan companies, and they don't get a very good press. Okay? Members of Parliament are saying they should be banned. Lots of examples of people's debt escalating very quickly. They can't afford their repayment. They're getting into a lot of trouble. So let's see, realistically, how ethical these companies are. I'm going to do 2 tasks. First of all, Wonga will try and justify that their company is ethical. It is legal and it follows all the correct practices. So for example, if Tom is desperate to go to a concert, who's your favourite artist, Tom? Anyone?
I don't know.
Kylie Minogue. He's desperate to go and watch Kylie Minogue. and the ticket's £50, but he's got no money at all. He knows that in 5 days' time, he's going to get a payment from his job. Okay, so he only needs to borrow the money for 5 days. He's desperate to get this ticket. Now, on Wonga, if you want to borrow £50 for only 5 days, they're going to charge you £8.28 in interest and fees, so the total you repay is £58.28. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
If you were that desperate, would you do that, Tom?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So in this example, as long as you borrow a small amount over a short period, it seems quite reasonable, the interest and the rates that they're going to charge. But let's see what happens, how it can escalate very, very quickly. Now, a little fact for you. The UK national debt at the moment is £4.8 trillion. What that means is that the government has spent £4.8 trillion of money that they haven't yet generated in. Now, there are reasons for that. A lot of the time, the government will spend money on projects, even though they don't technically have the money, so that the economy gets a boost in the future. So, for example, they might build a road network, even though they haven't got the money, on the sort of thinking that the road will provide more transport, more jobs, etc., so more money comes in the future. This actually works out at £78,000 for every single person in the United Kingdom. What I want to set you today is, if you could borrow the maximum amount of money from Wonga, which is £500, and they charge their extortionate APR rates, how many years would it be before you owe more than the UK national debt? So just from borrowing £500, how many years would it be before you owe this extortionate amount of money? Can you just jot down 4.8 trillion on your table, please? Now, what I'd like you to do is to first start with Wonga. Okay? So you can borrow a maximum of £500, and this is the APR rate they're going to charge you. Now, actually, in a Wonga loan, you can only take it out for 30 days. But ignore that. Let's presume you can take it out for as long as you want. Okay? Just very quickly, initial thoughts. Can anyone think of ways we could start this problem off? What are you thinking, Lily?
Do trial and error, and then...
Okay, excellent. I like that method, trial and error. Any other ways? Okay, we could look at using logs as well. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but maybe start with trial and error. It will give you a clear indication on the methods that you need to do. Okay guys, some brilliant calculations going on there. Let's go through a couple of examples. Has anyone got a definitive answer then? How many years?
Well, we got the one we got listed 5.3 years.
5.3 years. Any other variations? Jack, what did you get?
5.59.
5.59. Girls at the back, what did we get?
5.5.
Okay, so definitely somewhere between 5 and 6 years. What's your initial reaction then? That it's only 5 and 6 years? Millie?
Well, we thought it'd be like 20, 30 years to start with.
Yeah.
We didn't think it'd be that low.
Okay. You're quite shocked then that this figure is actually so low? Yeah? It's astounding really that this extortionate interest rate, after only about 5.6, 5.7 years, 5.5 years, you'll owe more than the national debt. It escalates so quickly. What methods did we use then? Girls on the back table, what method did you use to start with, please?
Trial and error.
Sorry, Lauren, what was that?
We started with trial and error.
Yeah, so what is the process that you went through?
Did 500 times the percentage rate. And then
Okay, so 500s are our initial borrowings. Guys, can we just watch this, please? Thank you. And then we're multiplying it by...
59.53%.
So where did 59.53 come from, Eve?
Percentage, I don't know.
It is the percentage multiplier, but where
It
did you
came
get
from the 5,853%.
Fantastic,
And
yeah.
then you've got to add like 100 onto it.
Yeah, to
increase
take into
it.
account our original 100%, very good.
And then divide it.
Yeah, fantastic. Add our original 100% and divide by 100 to get our multiplier. Excellent. So we used trial and error, and what did you get to one decimal place, Lauren, with trial and error?
5 point. Oh, 1 just 5.6.
5.6 years. What we're going to do now is we are going to give you a pack of information. There's some newspaper articles, there's some facts and figures from Wonga, there's the profit account from Wonga, and we want you to look at this final question.
So, as Sir said, payday loans are in the news a lot. Just this week, there's been some BBC articles about what's going on, and there's often lots of articles detailing individual situations and the sort of debt they can get into. Okay, and there's some quite bad stories out there about the debt that can start quite little and just escalate. So what we'd like you to do is, in your groups, have a look at some of those articles, have a look at some of those numbers, and just have a think about the future of payday loans and what could maybe be brought in to maybe regulate it a bit, or what is fair. So going forward, should payday loans be allowed to continue? Think about the pros and cons of having payday loan companies. What would a fair APR rate be, given some of the ones we've looked at so far? And what can the government or payday loan companies do to stop the sort of situations where individuals are getting into a lot of bad debt that they can't pay back? Okay? So just have a think about those 3 questions: pros and cons, a fair APR rate, and what could maybe be done. In your tables, I'm going to feed back as to what you think should happen. Right, let's just bring a couple of ideas together just to finish off and see what we think as a conclusion about payday loan companies. Let's think about pros and cons. Think about positives about payday loan companies to begin with. Why might there be a need for payday loan companies? What's good about them? Anyone like to share anything on?
You need to buy something, or
Yeah.
it's not payday for like another day,
Yeah.
then you can still get it, especially if it's like a necessity that you need to buy.
Yeah, so if it's short term, it's
Yeah.
you can use it. Any other reasons why it's good to have them as a business? Okay, and what about anything negative? Why should they possibly stop trading, or what could be brought in to regulate it a bit better?
More checks.
More checks on?
Well, like you can use them as soon as you've got a bank account,
Yeah.
so they don't know anything about it. So you could have like no job, you could borrow like £500 on it, but how are you supposed to pay it back?
Yeah.
You haven't got a job or anything.
If they're not checking that,
They're just scamming you, really.
yeah, absolutely, and the company could lose out because they might not done that check. You might have absolutely no way of paying it back, and they're losing that one. What about a fair? Any thoughts on a fair amount that the APR should be? Or
300,000.
under 1,000%? Okay. Yeah. So some of the ones we were looking at before, Wonga was like 5,000%.
That's much fairer than that one, because that one's 4,000, that one's like 2,000.
Yeah, so Wonga is a really expensive one. Why do you think Wonga is still a successful business?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, well advertised.
Fantastic, yeah.
Brainwash.
Pardon, Lauren?
Probably brainwash the customers with their adverts.
Yeah. They've done a really good job in advertising. Often, customers don't have a good understanding of the actual interest rates. And Wonga is probably one that if you were to name one loan company, probably the first one you'd go to. Anything else you notice from any of the tables?
I thought it was interesting what Lauren was saying about the fees as well, having a cap on the fees that they charge. What do you say about that, Lauren?
You should reduce the fees and the interest rate,
Okay, and what was the justification for that?
because then more people will pay them back online.
Okay. And thinking about the pros of payday loan companies, what would happen if they didn't exist, but you're desperate to borrow some money?
And you have to go to the local bank.
Okay, the local bank says, no way, sorry, you're not having any money.
Then you've got no way of getting it.
Okay,
Really?
so what are you going to do? You have to have this 50 quid, you have to go to that concert, what are you going to do?
That's my mum.
Okay, your mum says, no way, what are you going to do next? Put in.
Trying to sneak in.
Try and sneak in. Okay, now the bouncer's on the door. How are you going to get this 50 quid? What all people resort to?
Stealing.
Stealing, absolutely. Or, what else do we know? Who else might lend you some money but is extremely loan sharks, okay? So, whilst there are some disadvantages, they are set up, and if they're used correctly, then like we did with the example earlier, you can borrow a short amount of money for a small period and not pay too much back.
Good. So hopefully you've had a good look at payday loan deals and just got an idea of the actual sorts of APRs they often charge and seeing how extortionate they are compared to normal loan deals. Okay, so I've had a look at some of them. And he made some really good points on the pros and cons of payday loan companies. There have been some absolutely fantastic contributions throughout the lesson.